Okay, so how y'all doing? Hopefully you're hanging in there. Getting pretty rough. It's about 10 o'clock on the 26th, Thursday evening. And anyhow, so I've got another parable for you. And I thought while I'm doing that, I'd be polishing this a little bit. And I was going to kind of run by you a little bit about what my take on things that are going on a little bit. But one of the, this is what Putin's doing, okay? This is what the Chinese are doing right now. They're getting their stuff ready to go, really, what's happening. And I've over the last few months, I've watched some videos. I've watched this war progress, and I've watched the reactions by other parties in this war, and I can kind of see how the ducks are lining up a little bit, and it's pretty much how Chuck Youngbrandt had laid it out. In fact, it's exactly how he laid it out, and Dimitri Duduman and Steve Quayle and a few others. Gosh, what's his name? Henry Gruver, and some other people that were even further back than that, but like Jeremiah and chapter 49 and 50. You want to read that, and Revelations 18, Isaiah 14. You know, it's been out there a long time. But to bring it up to more current events. So what you have, you know, I hear a lot of people saying on the news, you know, Putin's in big trouble, he's under pressure, and all this stuff, and things aren't going good, and he's losing a lot of troops and all this stuff, and hardware, and you know, he doesn't know. He's learning. He doesn't know what he's doing exactly, and he's in big trouble. And the Chinese are watching him, and all this crazy stuff. Well, you know, he's a pretty smart cat, okay? And you know, you just don't go jump into a major operation without a little rehearsal time and getting everybody up to speed and learning where your weak points are, so you can buttress them up and get them, you know, stronger. So he's finding out a lot of stuff. He's finding out who he can depend on within his own units and in his own military and in his own country. And he's also, you know, finding out what works and what don't. And then, you know, what we used to do was exactly what he's doing. He'd go out and first, you got to figure out what it is you want to do, what you want to accomplish, right? And then you lay up a basic outline, but you go do a recon of the area that you're going to hit. Well, they've been doing that for a long time. Okay, there are these people here. Okay, they're here already. All right, they're in locations, you know, that are kind of secret to us, but not to them. And they've been here a long time watching, and they've been cataloging, and they've been writing down a lot of stuff, and they know exactly where everything is. Okay, the power, water, roads, bridges, our military bases, every asset or resource we have. They've got it all checked out. I mean, they've had years to do this, okay? What you're seeing now is just the workup to the main event, okay? And when they do hit, it's going to be like you never, you know, be a mess like you've never seen. So, and they're also strengthening ties with their other partners, okay? This is a joint venture. This isn't all just one dude out on a joyride, okay? This is a joint venture, and they all have a specific reason for doing what they're doing. And they've managed to get our country in sort of a state of semi-chaos already, all right? We've got serious problems erupting all over the place. The supply chain is, well, there's a term in the military we used to use, broke, something, you know? And that's what's happening. And they've got, you could say, agents within this country that are helping them move this along, okay? And they're doing a pretty darn good job of it. And they're making it look like it's all just a haphazard goofball mess that they are not quite in control of, and things are surprising them. Oh, you know, oh here, oh there, oh my goodness, look at this is happening, oh this is happening. It's like they all know what's happening. They planned it. So, you know, don't fall into that propaganda garbage that they're putting out all the time, because that's what they do. That's another thing they do, is they pump out the disinformation to keep everybody off base, off of what they're really up to. And they're doing a pretty good job of that too. So these guys, what they're doing is what I'm doing right here, okay? They're polishing their sword. They're getting it tuned up. They're getting it ready for battle, is what they're doing. And this thing that's going on over here is just it's like when they tune up the instruments before the big play, you know, in the theater. That's all they're doing, all right? They're finding out what we're going to do, or what we will do, or what we propose to do. And they're watching very closely all these other nations up here and seeing what they're doing, okay? And at the same time, they've managed to orchestrate a total cluster foxtrot in regard to our oil and our other resources and trades amongst all these other countries, to the point where it's really hurting here. And it's not just something that's just happening. This is all planned. So anyhow, that's my take on what's happening. So this guy knows exactly what he's doing, okay? And they're not going to be kicking him out, you know. And the Chinese folks over here, and these guys are just looking the other way. I guess they got promised something. These guys, well, they're getting paid good, I guess. And, you know, there's reports of a lot of, you could say, enemy sightings, okay? Sightings of people that don't mean us any good. And in this area, up in here, in, you know, mountainous regions where they can find a niche and hide out. And they're also out here in places that you would not expect. Places that nobody even looks at too much, you know. And they've got a very sophisticated communication system. They've got a line of resources. Anytime they need something, they can fly it in and airdrop it, or they can just bring it in, you know, on the backs of some people, or in SUVs. I mean, there are people that are driving SUVs down here to pick some people up and take them where, you know, somewhere, and set them up with little niches so they can be ready to go when they get the phone call, okay? And you know, our government has to know, and I don't know. Some of the elements in our government have to know. Some of the elements in our government don't know, how elaborate this whole thing is, but all I can say is that there must be a lot of compromised people that are trying to keep their mouths shut. And there's some people that aren't, and they're getting out there and getting it open, in the open. But they're doing it, you know, they're heroes, really. They're true patriots, and a lot of them have given their lives to get some of this information out there. And you know, when you go up against the dragon, you put your head on the chopping block. And that's what a lot of these people have done. And they've been doing it for years. Okay, this goes back, way back. This goes back before World War II. There have been people that have perished who have been, who tried to stop it or restrain it or report about it or bring it out in the open in some way. And many of them met their end early. And they are doing that up to this very day. So, it's no game, okay? This is as serious as a heart attack. And it is coming, and there's nothing that we can do to stop it, okay? Because the country has brought it upon itself. It's just that simple. And the Lord is going to allow it to happen. So, as Christians, we just need to knuckle down, buckle up, and get as close to Him as we can. Because that's the only thing that's going to keep us on the horse riding, you know, off into the sunset with Jesus, man, because it's going to get really hairy, okay? And He told us not to be afraid, right? Okay. Well, He wouldn't tell us that if it wasn't possible. So the more you're into the Word, the more you're into prayer, the more you're into that secret place with Him, the more that peace is going to surround you. And it's like being bulletproof, okay? You just know you are, and you know the end game. So you just know your mission. Your mission is to help when you can, where you're led to save someone. You know, bring them on into the fold, wake them up, whatever. Help them out. I mean, you may not want to bomb them with the whole gospel at once. You know, just give them some food, and then treat them like a person would like to be treated, you know, in a very dire situation. These people may have lost their whole families. They may have lost everything they own. They may have been wounded. They may have been hurt. They may have been damaged in some way. And there are going to be folks that are going to take these people in and give them comfort and give them, you know, love and help nurture them back to some semblance of strength, and their example is going to instill these people with confidence that they wouldn't have had otherwise to endure, and you know, seize that blessed hope that the Lord has provided for us, okay, with His life and with the works that have followed from all the apostles and the prophets and everybody, you know, that has worked under His wing to bring as many folks, many of God's kids home as possible. And that's basically it, you know. These guys can polish their swords all day long, you know, and they can have their wars and they can do all this stuff. And, you know, the real war is in the spirit, okay? It's just in the spirit. It's not like this at all. So, I mean, not that I give up my sword or my bow either, but you know, as the Lord leads, and He's, you know, He's leading. Some people will be used for you know, nurturing people, bringing them back to health. Other people to feed them, other people to protect them. And there'll be different gifts for different folks dished out, you know, amongst the remnant that exists. And so not everybody is going to be, you know, armed to the teeth, or not everybody's going to have the gift of healing, or but you're going to have something to bring to the table, and it's, you know, it's laid out. So find out what it is. And do it now, because we only have very little time left. From what I can see, I mean, the whole economy is if you ever saw, I forget which Star Trek it was, but where Spock is watching his planet do this, and basically engulf itself and disappear, turn into a black hole. Well, that's kind of what the economy is doing, and it's increasingly speeding up as things are getting tighter and tighter and tighter. And I mean, supply chain is broke, and it's starting to really rattle the whole system. And there's things that are not coming in, there's this and that, and because they're not coming in, people are getting laid off because they can't build this, or they can't build that, they can't put that in. And so you've got this perfect nightmare scenario where it's all just going to go, and then, you know, there'll be some announcement, I'm sure, on the TV. But and it's like this too. You know, you got the Russians and the Chinese are not stupid. Okay, they are very patient folks, and they have been working at this for a long time. So there's elements in our government that do dirty deeds, you know, and the Chinese and the Russians would rather not deal with an armed populace if they can help it, okay? And there's been a lot of effort put forth by them in this area, and enhanced by their agents that within our government that they've been able to influence to push this thing where they've brainwashed, you know, millions of people that these are bad, and that pistols and guns and, you know, well, that's not what Thomas Jefferson said, and neither George Washington, or neither did Patrick Henry, or any of these other people that founded this country. If it hadn't been for folks walking around armed, okay, and maintaining that ability to be armed, this country would never have existed in the first place. And you know, it's amazing watching the whole brainwash process take place. I mean, I've been around a little while. I'm not 20 anymore, and there's a lot of people. I was watching something, and I was amazed at how these people have been basically robbed of an education of the truth. So, my battery died in my camera, so it's now May 29th, and it's Memorial Day weekend. And it's a nice warm day, but the Lord gave me a dream last night, and it was a humdinger, and it was very vivid, and the gist of it was that we're this close to war, okay? And seeing as it's Memorial Day, it kind of even enhances the effect of the meaning of it all. But basically the dream was this. I was in some mountainous area, I'm not sure where, but there was a lot of troops, a lot of young troops that were being assembled, they were being called up. And it was like they were calling up everybody, okay? I had the feeling that they were calling up people that were not currently of age to go. But they may change some laws that will, you know, take care of that. And the feeling I got was that they were gonna call up people as young as 15, and guys, gals, you know, whoever. And they weren't gonna spend a lot of time in training him either. This was gonna be like an advanced, um, accelerated program of from the time you're inducted to the time you're deployed. Just not very long, and then gone, you're gone. And the feeling that I had too, it reminded me of the feeling of Vietnam. And during the dream, during the whole dream, I was hearing this song, and it was by Jimi Hendrix, and I'm not musically inclined whatsoever, really, and I don't remember songs, you know, I just don't have that gift. But this, it was very clear, and every nuance of the song, every strum of the guitar, every word he was saying was very crystal clear, and it had the feeling. I spent some time overseas, and I was in an area that was near Vietnam, and there was a certain feeling in that part of the world that only that part of the world gives you, and that was the sense, and that was the feeling that I had, and that's the general area where these troops were heading out, and the song was playing the whole time through the thing, and there were all these young kids getting geared up, and the thing was too that there was, the gist I got was that there was a logistics problem, and these guys were not being provisioned for like they would have been, 10 years ago. Things were tight, and they didn't have enough canteens, they didn't have enough boots, they didn't have enough equipment, weapons even, and ammo, and all of these things that an army needs to go out and conduct warfare. There was some serious shortages, and it was always a constant headache and problem. I mean, it always has been in the military, but it was really just crazy. I mean, when I was in, there was sometimes it took a while to get some things, but for the most part, everybody was pretty well equipped, and we all had Class A #1 gear. And it was during a time when a lot of things were made here in the United States. Well, it isn't the case anymore, as everyone knows. And because of that, there were these serious shortfalls of being able to provide enough of what these guys needed to go do their thing. But they were sending them out anyway. It didn't stop them from doing that. And the gist I got too was that we need to be really praying for our youth, because they're going to be called up. And they were even calling up guys that were older who thought that it was over for them, They'd done their bit for king and country. Well, guess what? Getting in the motorhome and going on vacation is not in the plan anymore. And they're going to be calling up guys that are healthy enough, and they'll be spooling back up and using these guys to help train these kids, and maybe even deploy them to do their job description, whatever that might be. 11 Bravo guys are probably going to be in high demand. But so this dream was with this song, and when I woke up, the feeling I had was that it was so close and so near this all happening, and I was like, Jimi Hendrix, okay, and I went and looked up the song, and I could only remember a few lyrics after I woke up, but it was enough. And the song was All Along the Watchtower, and I thought, gosh, I got to read the lyrics of this song, and so I looked it up, and I was stunned a bit about what the lyrics were about. And and this morning, you know, it was still fresh in my mind, and I thought there's something else I got to find out about this song. So I looked up when it was written, and it was written by Bob Dylan in 1967. And but Jimi Hendrix, a few months later, I guess they were buddies or something, and he was able to record his version of it. And it took him, I forget how many takes, and then he had troubles with some of his crew that were getting tired, I guess. And so he ended up doing some of the other guitar work on it himself. And it took days for him to get it to where he was satisfied with it. But anyway, so he recorded it, and that was the version I was hearing was his version. And you know, it really kind of enhanced the whole sense of the Vietnam feeling to me, and the area that these guys were going in. So anyway, I looked up the lyrics, and so that there was just something else that was, you know, that I was sensing that there was some other. I mean, the words in the lyrics were very prophetic, and it was like Dylan knew his Bible, and sure enough, I found a scripture, and it was Isaiah 20, verses like 1 to 11 or something like that. And in that, I can read it to you. That would be a good idea if I would have got this out earlier, but we'll find it. Just bear with me a minute. Now, if you go look up the words to the song, okay, and then read this, you'll get it, you know. So, oh, it's chapter 21, okay. The burden of the desert of the sea, as whirlwinds in the south pass through, so it cometh from the desert, from a terrible land. A grievous vision is declared unto me. The treacherous dealer dealeth treacherously, and the spoiler spoileth. Go up, O Elam, besiege, O Media. All the sighing thereof have I made to cease. Therefore are my loins filled with pain. Pangs have taken hold upon me, as the pangs of a woman that travaileth. I was bowed down at the hearing of it. I was dismayed at the seeing of it. My heart panted, fearfulness affrighted me. The night of my pleasure hath he turned unto fear unto me. Now I can relate to that, because that's pretty much what I was feeling last night when I woke up after this dream. And my heart panted, fearfulness affrighted me. The night of my pleasure hath he turned into fear unto me. Yeah. Prepare the table, watch in the watchtower. Eat, drink, arise, ye princes, and anoint the shield. For thus hath the Lord said unto me, Go, set a watchman, let him declare what he seeth. And he saw a chariot with a couple of horsemen, a chariot of asses, and a chariot of camels. And he hearkened diligently with much heed. And he cried, A lion, my lord, I stand continually upon the watchtower in the daytime, and I am set in my ward whole nights. And behold, here cometh a chariot of men with a couple of horsemen. And he answered and said, Babylon is fallen, and all the graven images of her gods he hath broken unto the ground. O my threshing and the corn of my floor, that which I have heard of the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, have I declared unto you. The burden of Duma, he calleth to me out of Seir. Watchman, what of the night? Watchman, what of the night? The watchman said, The morning cometh, and also the night. If ye will inquire ye, return, come. Well, we're this close, okay? And I don't know how it's going to come about exactly. I know there's a lot of gyrations going on over here in the South China Sea with China and Taiwan and the Koreans and our Navy. And years ago, the Lord gave me a dream about this coming war. And it had to do with the Navy. I was in the Navy for a short while. Well, 9 years. So anyway, I was on the ocean. It was like a large bay, and there was it was like a PT boat, but it was bigger than a PT boat, and it had a gun up front, and it had a wheelhouse, you know, and there was a sailor at the helm of this boat, and I was hanging off. I was sort of like on the walkway around the cabin of this boat, and I was hanging on to a railing like a bar, and the boat was just full throttle, just wah, 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 banging on the waves. It was a little choppy, and the salt spray was spraying up on me. And I remember the feeling of it stinging my face, because we were moving. I mean, we were probably going 50 miles an hour at least. And I remember looking over at this kid who was piloting this boat. And he was clean cut. He was in a Navy uniform. And he was like into it. You know, he was really into it. He looked like he was 16 years old, okay? He was red-haired, he had freckles, and, I mean, I don't think he could grow a beard. And anyway, it was just this, you know, this very active assault kind of feeling going on. And this kid was so into it. And during that, I heard this song playing. And I heard the song before, but I couldn't quite place it. And, well, it turned out it was The Flight of the Valkyries. And I later found out it was in a movie, Apocalypse Now. And anyway, it was pretty intense. And the feeling I got was that these guys, I mean, they were going into battle, and they knew it, and they were doing all they could do, the only thing they could do, and that was just to get into it and to try to do the best they could. And I had a feeling like they knew they were on the short end of the stick, but, you know, it was like, damn the torpedoes, we're going for it. And in a way, I felt good, you know, I felt good that was the case, but I felt sad at the same time that it had to be in the first place. And anyway, so I just thought I'd share that with you. But I do have a little parable for you that I got, and I thought I'd share that with you too. It's called The Parable of the Farmer. There was once a farmer, and he had some cows and some sheep and some goats and some chickens and ducks and pigs and rabbits. He probably had the largest farm for quite a ways. He had some neighbors that he helped from time to time, and they in turn helped him as well. It was a pretty good community. It wasn't perfect, but for the most part it worked well. One day while the farmer was feeding his stock, he found a few chickens missing. He searched about the barn but couldn't find them. A few days later, he went out to feed his stock again, and a couple of pigs were missing. Now the farmer was on the alert, for he knew it was not by chance anymore. He went to church, and after church he was eating some potluck with his neighbors and brought up his missing stock. To his surprise, many of his neighbors were experiencing the same thing. It had started out small, but as time went by, it was really hurting the little community. More and more stock was disappearing, and there was found some tracks here and there in the mud near where the stock were watered. So after a few months, make sure it's still recording. Went by, the farmers decided to have a meeting after church to discuss the latest events and come up with a solution. The first farmer was chosen to lead the meeting as his was the largest farm. During the meeting, it was found that all the farmers were suffering great losses now, and something had to be done soon to stop it, or soon the farmers would have to sell their farms. And on top of that, news had spread to the other communities about them, and due to the current problems, they would only receive a small percentage of what their farms were actually worth. So the first farmer proposed an idea to the rest of the farmers. He told them of his time he spent in the army when he was a young man, how when his unit would get hit by the enemy, his lieutenant would send out a recon team to hunt down the enemy and find out where his base was. Then they would report back to the lieutenant. The lieutenant then worked up a plan to bring out the enemy to a location of our choosing and ambush them and destroy all of them. So the farmer recommended they do the same. The rest of the farmers all agreed and chose 3 farmers to work up a schedule to have them go out just before dark and set up an observation post to quietly watch and see what was stealing their stock. But just to watch and not take any action until they had returned with the information. So for a few nights, the 3 farmers spent the night quietly watching, and what they observed chilled their blood. At first they only saw one, and then a few more came by. Very slowly they assembled. They seemed to be communicating with each other. Then they split up into smaller groups, 20 or 30, in a pack. Off they went to the different farms about the communities. Hundreds of jackals. The 3 farmers were amazed at how organized they seemed, like an army marching out to loot and pillage wherever they went. But just before first light, they reassembled, and with their loot, and divided up the spoils, each returning to the Hill of Dens. They disappeared before sunup. This report sent an alarm through the farmers assembled at the following meeting. But the old farmer sat quiet, just listening to his neighbors speak. Then, with a raised hand, he motioned for quiet. He knew what to do. Step by step, he outlined his plan as he had done so many times before in days gone by. And with each step he revealed a quiet resolve grew among the farmers, for they could see the plan now and how good it was, that it would rid them of this menace once and for all. A profound respect also rose within the farmers for the old farmer and his knowledge of how to deal with such threats and alleviate their fears, instilling confidence that the plan would not fail. All the farmers would have a part to play, which made them all feel even better about it. Each farmer would offer up a few stock as bait to keep the jackals occupied for the length of the whole night, and literally allow them to gorge themselves to the full, to slow them down some, and be overstuffed and burdened with loot. They would not be at the top of their game. As they would be having their fill, the farmers would be setting up an ambush. They assembled dynamite they used to blow tree stumps up and such, and wire, caps, and the tools necessary to completely demo the Hill of Dens. The farmers chose a nearby hilltop to assemble and stage everything for the next few days, being careful to keep their activities quiet so as not to alarm the jackals of anything amiss. Several days went by till all was finally ready. The farmers had one last meeting before the evening of the ambush. Step by step, they reviewed their plan and what part each farmer had to play. Confidence filled the little church. The farmers chose to execute the ambush on a Sunday night, and for 3 days before, they would lock up their stock well to cause a deep hunger among the jackals at the time of the ambush. On the following Sunday afternoon, all the farmers quietly walked to the nearby hill. Quiet and slow was their approach. All sat down and nestled in among the trees and rocks to watch the jackals come forth. One by one, they quietly came out of their dens, the farmers carefully marking where they appeared from so as not to miss even one den. Then, after a while, all the jackals assembled as before, hundreds of them. None of the farmers had never seen such a thing before. It looked like the ground was moving, so many were assembled. moving to and fro across the valley, between the hills. The farmer saw something else that night, but not on the ground. Up in the sky, there were several vultures circling about, as if they could sense the event soon to unfold. Quietly, the farmers watched as the jackals finally took off to hunt their prey. When the last of the jackals were far out of sight, the farmers waited another quarter hour just to be certain they would cause no alarm in the packs of jackals heading to their farms. At last the old farmer stood up, and with a whisper he spoke. "Let's do it." All the farmers stood up, each with a small pack of tools and prearranged bundles of dynamite. They quietly approached the Hill of Dens. Not a word was spoken as the farmers worked through the night, setting up charges in all the dens, and laying wire, hiding it all carefully in the soil and leaves so as not to leave a trace of their activity. With still some time to spare, the last of the dens were completed. The farmers quietly returned to their hilltop and rested as they waited. Not a sound was made. As still as stones they remained. With stars still shining bright, the first of the packs began returning. One by one they returned. The first glow to the east began. The last of the packs arrived. As the last of the packs arrived, the jackals seemed sluggish. Some went straight to their dens, disregarding any thought to assemble and divide up their loot. They were too exhausted from the orgy of flesh they consumed to regard any pretense or structure of discipline of the pack. As the last of the jackals entered their dens, the sky above began to brighten some, revealing to the farmers a sign of things to come, as now hundreds of vultures circled overhead, anticipating another orgy of flesh soon to come. The old farmer had seen this before, many years before, on a battlefield in a war that seemed to never end. A half hour passed, and the old farmer rose up from his place. He moved his arm from high to low, telling the farmer with the plunger it was the appointed time. All of the farmers then rose up now, all moving their arms, as if to repeat the command and agree. And so the farmer did. In one gigantic upheaval, the Hill of Dens rose up into the sky. A mass of soil, trees, rocks, and jackals dissolved into the air. The first thing the farmers felt was the ground moving, as the sound of the blast had not reached them yet. Then came the heat from the fireball, singeing beards not a few. Instinctively, the farmers raised their arms and covered their ears and hit the deck. A blast of sound, wind, dirt, and debris spread out in all directions. In a moment, the Hill of Dens was no more. Even though the farmers knew it was coming, they were all quite stunned at the level of destruction they had unleashed. So they stood back up after a few moments passed and watched as the dust settled and looked on at the crater where the Hill of Dens had been. As they watched and looked over their handiwork, the vultures began to descend and begin their work, their strange work. The time of the jackal's terror was over. The time of the farmer had arrived. So, things are getting tight here, okay? As a result of things that certain people are doing, and we don't have a lot of time. So things are getting more expensive and getting harder to come by, and you can see the writings on the wall, okay? Pretty soon it's going to get so tough that there's going to be a lot of conflict out there, and blood is going to flow. It's just no avoiding it now. So I suggest that you spend a lot of time in prayer and do all the prepping you can right now, and stock up as much as you can, as much water and food and the basics, okay? Don't get all crazy, just get the basics. And like it says in the Word, you know, we're going to be probably keeping our heads down for a while until the indignation is past. But it's going to be pretty grim, all right? There's just no other way to put it. So, not to put you any in fear or nothing, it's just to be aware of it. The Lord has given us this information to arm us with the knowledge to, provide against it, like he did with Noah, okay? I mean, when Noah got the news that the whole earth was going to be covered in water, it probably didn't sit real good with him at first. And I can understand that. We can all understand that. But the Lord had to do what he had to do. And once the ball began to roll, there was just no stopping it. It was going to continue on its way. And that's where we're at. This whole thing is going to continue on its way. And, for the United States, it's not going to be good. And for the rest of the world, it's not going to be good. But the Lord told us to endure. And you need to just grit your teeth and do that. And, and pray for your, you got kids that are 16, 17, 19, 20, 25. Pray for them. And ask the Lord, to protect them and to take them. If it's meant to be for them to go home, then underneath the Lord's wings they go. And it's a tough thing. It's probably the roughest, hardest thing a parent will ever have to do. And there's a lot of parents out there, you may see this and you've already gone through this, and so you can relay this message because you felt it deep down in your heart and you know exactly what I'm talking about. So God has been merciful and it's been good to give us this warning. Let's heed it. Like it says, heed it with all heed, with all heed is what it says. And take it seriously because this is coming down and it's as serious as a heart attack. So, God keep you guys and stay as close to him as you can and be in that secret place often. And I suggest, to stay off the net for a while. Just give a little time to the Lord and go about your business. And just don't get too sucked up in all this garbage because it's, these people are going to do their crazy stuff, okay? And I keep up on it from time to time just to keep up on what, I can see what they're doing and I can, from what I know, I can see where they're at. But I put it aside and I go out and I build something or, shovel some crap or do something. And meditate and talk to the Lord and stay close to him and listen and ask him to guide me in the things that I'm doing because, I'm a pretty busy guy. Not a lot of grass grows under my feet. But I also take time aside to, have calms with the Lord because without him, I'll be putting effort out unnecessarily in the wrong place. And it's like these guys, that are running the show. They basically discarded God's, input whatsoever. So they're out there doing this stuff with their own delusion mind, and everything they're doing, they can't help it but for it to be wrong because they've proceeded from a false, beginning point in the first place. So, they're on the path. They want to stay on that path their own way, and they're going to see what that's going to, end up returning to them. And it's not going to be good for them. there may be a few that wake up and return back to God's ways. I pray that that's the case. I have no ill feeling toward these people. I know that they're just blind. And I remember I used to be blind. And so I know what it's like. But that's for God to judge, you know, these people. So, but as far as, you know, keeping ourselves straight and keeping ourselves clean and holy as much as we can. And when we goof up, let's clear the books right away and get back on that path. And anyhow, so that's it for me today. Roger out. You guys carry on. Do what you can do.